Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hentz. Very pleased to be welcoming back to the show, not necessarily folks that we've had on before, but they are with an organization that we've had on, I think, 3 times previously, and we're very happy to have them back tonight. Their topic tonight is sex trafficking and human trafficking, and we have folks here from a local nonprofit called Damascus Road, and they work with these individuals who are victims of these kinds of trafficking situations. So, very happy to be joined. To my right is Kelly Olson. She is the Director of Services and Operations for Damascus Road. And then to her right is Deb Houts. She is the Director of Incarceration and Reentry. We were supposed to have 2 other people, one whose mother has been pretty sick for a while and is hospitalized, and then so she sent 3 other people, or thought she was, and we only have 2 because the third person tonight, her mother was rushed to the hospital. So we wish them both all the best wishes in the world for speedy recovery, and so God's blessings upon you folks. All right, I got that all out of the way. So, welcome. Thanks for being here and for picking up the slack because other folks couldn't be here. We appreciate it. So, as I mentioned, we've done a few of these shows before, but for people who maybe didn't see the shows or who don't understand what the differences are, what is it? What does it mean when we hear that someone's being trafficked? And what's the difference between sex trafficking and human trafficking? Who wants to field that one?
Go for it.
Okay. So human trafficking is the sale of another human being or being used for profit by means of force, fraud, or coercion.
Okay.
It's a hard one to say.
Yeah.
So it can be any one or a combination of those 3 things. And that is the category. And underneath that category, subcategories could be labor trafficking or sex trafficking or commercial sexual exploitation.
Okay, so sex trafficking is like a subcategory of...
Under the umbrella.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, so how do people end up getting trafficked?
There's many ways as the day is long.
Sure.
But typically what we see in our world, which is sex trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation, is people are typically people who have vulnerabilities that are captured by predators who know exactly how to prey upon them to capitalize on those vulnerabilities.
Okay.
So some of those vulnerabilities might be homelessness, joblessness, drug addiction, childhood trauma, namely sexual trauma, things like that. And predators are really good at keying in on those things and knowing just how to take advantage of them. So they might be somebody who friends a person, learns a little bit about them, learns where their vulnerabilities are, and knows how to capitalize on those things in order to get them to be compliant.
Okay. When we think of trafficking, I don't know about anybody else, but when I very first started hearing about trafficking, I started thinking in terms of, stuff that we kind of sometimes see on TV.
Sure.
Where someone's just walking along the side of a road. It might be a very cute young girl, or it could be a nice, cute young woman, or a young boy, perhaps, and they're just snatched and taken away. I'm sure some of that happens, probably, but some of these other things seem to be a little bit more advanced, not necessarily sophisticated, but so they're sort of befriending you and then grooming you to a point where they trust you. And then you do what? You just take them away, or under the guise of, hey, I'm going to save you from this horrific situation you're in, or how does all that work? I mean, what do they say to get these people to go with them?
Well, okay, I'll traffic this one since I do the jail ministry. What we have come to find out is the internet is a very useful tool that they use. They befriend these women. They tell them everything that they want to hear, how they're going to take care of them and make their lives wonderful, and they turn into their boyfriends, or so they think they're boyfriends, and they give them everything they want, and then they turn around and say, now what are you going to give me? And they turn it on them. So many times that's how they get manipulated. They think that they are in love with this person, and in all facts, it turns on them. Or they get addicted to drugs, and then they are taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So
You're right. It is, I mean, while that can happen, like we see the Hollywoodized version of movies such as Pretty Woman or Taken, that's generally not the norm. That is not typically what we see.
Yeah.
It's much more subtle, much more crafty. And I think that's why people are so easily confused or deceived by what it really is.
And by the time they realize, if they realize what it is, it's
Right.
probably too late.
right.
Right, because most of these
Absolutely.
people being victimized don't self-identify. They don't even recognize that it's happening.
Right.
So then, say someone's caught in a situation, all of a sudden they do realize what's going on, or they just realize, hey, I miss my family, I miss home. It's maybe not, now that I've been away from it for a little bit, it's maybe not as bad as I thought it was. I want to go back. Well, they can't go back, right? I mean, how do they go about getting out of that situation if that's what their choice is, to go back? I mean, I can't imagine that these people let them go back.
It's not
Do
that
they?
easy, generally speaking. It's very difficult to leave a situation because you become dependent on that person who's exploiting you for something of value. It might be a place to stay. It might be supporting a drug habit. They may have manipulated a person who's been victimized into using drugs, either to keep them compliant or to create a dependency. And now that dependency is there, they need that person in order to meet that need. So as long as they can provide something of value, it's not always money,
Yeah.
they create a dependency. And you're right, it is not easy to leave, because how do you go back and step away from all of those things once you've gone
come
that
to-
far and experienced that
you
kind of
have
trauma?
become dependent on it,
Right.
and
Right.
yeah. So it sounds to me, you mentioned Pretty Woman. I didn't really see anyone being trafficked there, but there was a portrayal of hookers there with pimps. It sounds to me, kind of the way you guys are describing this, that these people who manipulate children, young girls, even adults, depending on what their situation is, they're almost like a pimp in a way, right? Because they're taking care of you, and you're expected to in turn take care of them.
That's a good way to put it, yes.
So
There's a cost to that. So even up front, if they're dating a girl, getting their nails done, getting their hair done, buying them nice new clothing and accessories, taking them wonderful places for meals, ultimately there's an expectation of something in return.
sure.
And that's
Right.
how they get lured in. They get lured in with false promises.
And what's the expectation of what they want someone to do? I suppose it can be almost anything, but it probably has to do with sex in most cases.
Correct. In where we're talking with sex trafficking and sexual exploitation specifically, the exchange is a sex act of some type for that thing of value that they're getting from the person who's exploiting them. Now, sexual exploitation, we also see some women who self-exploit because of dependencies or homelessness. Maybe they can't get into a shelter and it's a terrible day outside, and the fellow might pull up in a car where the line is outside the shelter, for instance, and say, hey, I'll provide you a nice warm place to stay tonight, and you can take a shower and have a hot meal. Well, there's an expectation, whether it's said or not said,
Yeah.
and just like that, that woman might choose to go with them for a better situation for the night and wind up in a situation that she never expected. Or sometimes maybe she knows what the cost is going to be, but it's still the lesser evil.
Yeah. Well, let's, before we get too far into that, and we want to talk about, some numbers that are regionalized or localized in some way, because when I think about Oshkosh, I don't think about this happening here, and
Right.
I don't think most people do, and yet it really is a big problem.
Oh, absolutely.
So I want to talk about those things for sure, but tell us about Damascus Road. You guys are volunteers with them. Is this a completely volunteer-driven operation?
Almost entirely.
Okay, so someone gets paid.
We are trying to introduce that, but up to right now or recently, we have been 100% volunteer operated. And we're recognizing the need that we can't continue to operate the way we are without having some paid staff, because our volunteers are doing so much more than any organization would ever expect a volunteer to do.
Yeah.
I'm a full-time volunteer, for instance. Deb works a full-time job and packs in an awful lot of Damascus Road around it too.
Yeah.
So,
Well, so tell us about Damascus Road. How long have you guys been in operation? How did you come up with the name? How did it get started? Why did it get started in this area? Give us a little brief history.
sure. So Damascus Road started in 2009.
Okay.
And it started with our CEO and founder, Lisa Senholz. And she was doing overseas missions work, and then bringing information from what experiences she had back home and sharing it within community organizations, churches, civics organizations, etc. And her view was from a worldview at that point. And slowly over time, it became more zoomed in to a national view of what trafficking looks like, because it doesn't look the same everywhere.
No.
And then it kind of zoomed in a little closer into
Yeah.
Wisconsin. And people were coming to her and approaching her with situations that were happening more locally and asking for support or help or suggestions for what they could do to help people who were being exploited. So it started with Lisa working out of her kitchen and out of the trunk of her car, and then a couple more of us kind of came on board to help her with administrative things, or in Tara Kozlowski's case, working in communities doing education and awareness. I was working in the back doing paperwork, bookwork, and things like that. And it's just evolved into a situation where we have over 40 people volunteering with us today.
Oh, wow.
And it's taken on a life of its own out of necessity. And we've grown in the directions that trafficking indicates that there's needs that aren't being met.
Sure. What kind of geographic area do you guys cover? Are you just Winnebago County, or I think you stretch out a little bit beyond Winnebago County, don't you?
Yeah. In Outagamie County right now, we have a lady who visits the county jail up there, and as well as Winnebago. But the women cover the whole state of Wisconsin. We've had women from everywhere in the state. We've even had a few come from Chicago. Somehow they all end up in the Fox Valley area. We also do reach out to the prison. We have a prison ministry. We don't visit them on hand, but we do send weekly encouragement letters and such to them.
Okay. So how do these people, mostly women, I would assume, let's talk about men being trafficked. Men can be trafficked.
Absolutely.
Are you finding, though, that it's much more related to women being trafficked, or am I?
The clients that are coming our way are definitely female. However, we have a couple of occasions where we've been requested by men, and what we do, because you can't be everything to everyone as much as we'd like to be. We've had to connect men when they've been put in our path with other organizations that specialize in serving men. Right. So Damascus Road serves adult women, so 18 and over. We've had people brought to us as young as 15 or 16 years old. We have clients that are well into their 60s, and people find that surprising. But it's quite a span, and it's quite a diverse population too.
Yeah. So I guess first thing then, something that just popped in my head. If you're just serving adult women, what happens when someone comes to you with, a person, a girl who's 16, 17, 15, whatever the case may be?
We try and connect them with brother or sister organizations that we know of that specialize in youth.
Okay.
Youth is just a whole another animal. It truly is.
Yeah.
Things that are necessary to be able to provide services to youth are so much more complex, and we're just
probably much more regulated as well.
Absolutely. So we have to work within the parameters that we work within, and we're busier than we ever imagined we would be, and we don't have enough volunteer staff that's trained and equipped to handle the demand.
Yeah.
So even just within our little area of it, which is the majority of the people who are victimized, but we have to refer youth and we have to refer men out to other similar hearted organizations.
Well, we're going to talk about volunteers a little bit later. I made a note of it, but so how do these women? How is it? And I guess this is my. I still sometimes think of my mind as being kind of small town Oshkosh, even though I've lived lots of other places and I've seen a lot of different things in my lifetime. But when I came back home to Oshkosh, I just, when I think of it, I don't see hookers walking around. I don't see this kind of thing. And I think that's why most of us don't think that this is a problem in Oshkosh or Winnebago County. But how do these women end up in jail? Are they picked up by the police for prostitution?
Occasionally.
Yep.
But we often have been meeting women in jail who might be there for something else entirely, but that's not their whole story. So, for instance, a woman might be in jail for a shoplifting charge or for a drug charge, but that's ultimately not the real reason she's in jail. There's an underlying reason that is linked to trafficking or sexual exploitation. And so we have posters in the pods at the jail that are for women that help them with some questions that are self-identifying questions. They can read it, and if they're reading those questions and they're like, that's me, right? Then they can reach out to us, and Deb and her team step in at that point.
Right. And there is a lot of client referral as well when they start to talk. And then they share stories, and then they realize that, hey, you know what happened to you, right? And the jails actually reach out to us.
Well, that's good. I did hear of one person who intentionally did something. It wasn't a shoplifting thing, I don't think, but she intentionally did something so that she would get picked up by the police to get her away from the situation.
Correct.
Is that a common sort of thing?
It happens.
Yeah, it happens more than you would think it does. And the police department, they do have prostitution stings, and when they do that, they don't know if those women have been trafficked, so they contact us, and then we go talk to the women after they've been arrested to find out really what is going on.
So you talk to all of them then who have been arrested?
We have a relationship with Oshkosh Police Department, and they'll reach out to us if they have an arrest where they feel that trafficking or sexual exploitation is a piece of this woman's puzzle, and then we connect with them. If they're incarcerated, Deb connects with them in jail. If they're in community or maybe they're at the police department, they'll bring us in to visit with them there and see if we can help them.
Okay. Is it easier to get a person out of being trafficked if they are in jail and they're protected by, by the boundaries of the jail, basically, because they're safer than...
Some of them feel safer in there, for sure.
Yeah.
They have definitely said, I feel way safer in here. I need to get sober. I need to stay away from these people. So, yeah. And then in some cases, no. That's not what they need, but...
We'll see people self-sabotage just to get back into jail because they feel safer. We'll also see other people who are still being controlled even while they're in jail.
Right.
How's that happening? Well, I'm getting an education here.
Yeah.
Sure. Maybe they're getting letters. Maybe they're getting phone calls.
Phone calls.
Maybe they're getting messages relayed through third parties that still keep them under their thumbs.
Right.
Well, doesn't the prison staff then, or the jail staff, do you work with the state prison or just the jails?
Just the jail.
Okay.
Well,
She works with. Yeah.
I work with the county jails.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that when mail comes into a jail, it's looked over before it's passed on to the addressee. I would think that if they're seeing something that indicates that, hey, this person is still being manipulated and trafficked in a different kind of way, I guess I'm just not understanding how they can still be manipulated.
It's
that
subtle
way.
and it's clever. And
Yes, and they make it not sound like that's what it is, and
The person who's writing it,
yes,
writing the letter.
and the women have been beaten and threatened in the past. So, just they don't even have to do that when they talk to them. They already know what's going to happen.
fear is a powerful tool.
Fear.
Yeah.
Very powerful tool.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm still kind of thinking about what you said, Deb, about the fact that some of these women actually feel safer in jail. I mean, I would think. I've never been in jail, thank God. I hope I never am. Not even for 15 minutes.
Right.
But, well, I take that back. I have been through a jail when I was a reporter covering a case for a newspaper, and the person would not leave their, whoops, there went my mic. Bear with me, folks. I got to find it here. Got it. Now I just have to get it attached. Okay. So anyway, that was a case that I was covering for a newspaper, and he would not come out of his cell, so the judge said, okay, I'm clearing the courtroom. The only ones who are remaining here are the media and the people involved in the case. And then he said, we're going to have to go to this person in the jail and, stay up against the wall because this guy has a habit of throwing feces and urine at people. And that was enough of an experience for me. And I think we were in there probably 10, 15 minutes. So that was my only experience in a jail, and I pray to God it is the only one I ever have. But when I hear you say that these women some of them feel safer in jail, that's a powerful statement.
It is, because it's a very scary place
and it's
to
a
be.
scary statement.
Right.
Because I would not think of jail as being a safe place.
And
Right.
it is for
For some of our
some of our
women.
women,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So, it's completely volunteer, but we're going to talk a little bit later about how to get volunteers. Now, statistically speaking, how big of a problem is this in Wisconsin? And then do you have it broken down further by, like, county? Like Winnebago County, Outagamie County, those two things?
So, I don't know if you can, we have that map that
Yeah, we can bring up that map. We'll
So-
take the map of Wisconsin right now and bring that up.
we share this map whenever we're in a situation where we're presenting to a community and doing a community education place.
Okay.
And oftentimes people ask us, it doesn't really happen in my little town, does it? And I think this is really powerful because if you look at the map, there's a big yellow spot. That's the general area that we have our client base from.
Okay.
But there's a list of big cities and small towns all throughout Wisconsin, and we have clients that are either originally from or have been trafficked in every one of those big cities or small towns in Wisconsin. And that list has grown probably even since we put that map together. So we know that trafficking has happened in every one of 72 counties in Wisconsin. We know that the greater Fox Valley area along the Highway 41 corridor is a hot spot, coming through from Chicago and Milwaukee up through to Green Bay. We know that a trafficker can make more money per transaction in an area like Appleton, Oshkosh, than they can in, say, a big city like Milwaukee or Chicago. So while we don't see street prostitution like you were talking about earlier as having visualized, we don't necessarily see that in our smaller communities. It is still happening here in a different way.
Right.
Internet advertising on sex for sale websites,
Sure.
and then bringing the people who are being victimized to hotels or motels right off of Highway 41 corridor, and then scheduling dates for them, date after date after date.
Interesting. So I can't really see it all that well from my vantage point, but what are we showing in each county there? Are we showing numbers of?
We're showing county or towns, and I'll just pick out a few of them that I can see from here that are local. So we have Berlin, we have Amro, we have Winneconne, Winchester, Larson, we have the town of Oshkosh, the city of Oshkosh, Clayton. So those are nearby communities that I'm just seeing pop off the map really quick. Wapaka, Washura, Van Dyne, and these are all places where we have served women who are originally from those towns.
So the things that are on the actual map itself.
Those are counties.
Oh, those are the names of the counties.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So do we have statistics for, I don't know, how many?
Why, yes.
I
There we
see
go.
that there.
So in 2017, enough people had suggested that we might want to start tracking the clients that we were serving, that we started keeping numbers. As you can see, in 2017, we served 73 unique clients. And you can see our growth in 2018 and 2019, and a little bit of a taper off in 20 and 21 because of COVID, which is a whole
That just
different
affected
show.
everybody and everything.
Yeah,
didn't
it
it?
did.
Our girls had it worse, and we had less ability to reach
help.
them and serve them. And then you're seeing an acceleration again in 22, 23, and we've already met with 45 unique new women to date. So just under 700 women to date that have had some sort of contact or services from our organization. So in addition to these new clients that we continue to meet, we're still in active relationships with many of the existing clients, sometimes for years. We have clients that we've met in 2017 that we still do things with today.
So when you take on a new client, what are you providing for them? What are you doing for them? I think we can probably leave that screen right now. And then I want to go back to the annual profits that we have a screen for. But you get word that there's a brand new client. Walk us through the steps of, that what you take to contact these women and meet with them, and then where do you go from there?
So the first thing we do is we put them, we sit down and we put them through an intake process. We have to fill out some paperwork and make sure that we're identifying that they are in fact trafficked or sexually exploited. Because sometimes we have people that are referred to us with other issues that are very serious issues, but they don't fall in our lane. And then we identify what their needs are. So are they struggling with food insecurity, homelessness? Are they wearing the only clothes that they have? Do they even have the means? Do they have hygiene and toiletry items? Because we know that you have to meet those basic needs first before you can dig in deeper and solve some of the bigger issues together, which are healing from trauma. And so we look at the basic needs first. Deb and her team, when they go into jail, they'll go through that intake process and identify what their legal issues are too, and how that's going to play out. And we just try and meet needs in a partnership with the client for as long as they would like to walk alongside with us. And those needs are social, emotional, physical, mental health.
A lot of mental health.
A lot of mental
A
health.
lot of addiction that we need.
Sometimes addiction is a piece of it.
Right.
A good majority of these people have had prior sexual trauma in their life, often in early childhood or adolescence, and that is a trauma that alters their brain development from that point on, that makes them more vulnerable to or susceptible to being taken advantage of.
So they need that healing, you know, first.
Yeah.
So first immediate needs, and then we look at more of a
How
long-term
deep.
path.
Right.
Yeah. How successful have you guys been in, getting people out of a trafficking situation?
Well, that's really a hard.
I'm sure,
That's a
yeah.
hard answer. You can't really keep track because I think Kelly mentioned before that sometimes life, it doesn't give them any more option. They end up back into it, and then they get out again. And sometimes you never know. Sometimes you help them, you send them to treatment, and they succeed, but we don't hear from them.
It ebbs and flows, and it depends
Right.
on how you define success,
Right,
too.
exactly.
Lisa, our CEO, often shares the story of a client that we had, for instance, that had trauma that related to doing things in public alone, wasn't comfortable using a public restroom. It was very traumatizing for her. And the success for her was the first time we were with her, and she went to the restroom by herself. Now,
Little things.
It's a
that
little thing.
most of us take for granted.
Right.
right, so that's a success.
Right.
Somebody who maybe said no to drugs today when they used for the last however long, and then tomorrow they say no too. That's a huge success.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And we see those successes every day.
Right.
Every day.
So, all right, let me drill down kind of specifically. How successful have you guys been in getting women completely out of their trafficked situation and back into, on the road to, I'll call it recovery for lack of a better word, but back into a situation where they're no longer going to become prey to the same person who trafficked them in the first place, or to someone else.
Sure. Because they are vulnerable to be re-exploited, absolutely. And I would say we see girls in all varying different levels of exiting. And there's a statistic that's floating around that it takes the average person who's being trafficked or exploited 7 times trying to exit before they successfully exit. So, like Deb was saying, sometimes, they're in that process. And so to say we have an end result is really difficult because it is a process, and it is a long process. It's not something where somebody just says, I'm done, and walks
gets
away.
out.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Wow,
but
7
we-
times, 7 efforts being made to.
Yeah, and we've
break
seen a
free.
lot of great, amazing, inspirational success stories, which is awesome. And sadly, we've seen a few where girls have lost their life to addiction or violence, and that's heartbreaking. It's a real hard thing to walk through.
Yeah. How does Wisconsin compare to other states when it comes to trafficking? Are we on the high end? Are we kind of in the middle?
I would say we're on the higher end of things.
Really?
We're busy. We're busy, and we have very limited resources compared to other states. There are states that are a lot busier. Texas comes to mind right away, Florida, California. And they have a lot more resources, but they're still unable to meet needs.
Yeah.
Boy, we would love to see a lot more qualified, committed people doing things to help women who are being trafficked and exploited here in Wisconsin.
Sure.
We're not meeting the needs.
Yeah. So in this particular area, we saw some of those numbers. What does it mean in terms of dollars? And I know we have a screen that we can put up for that. Annual profits. How big of an industry is this in terms of dollars?
Well, I think we have to go to the next.
Yeah, we have to go to.
There we go.
There it is.
This is surprising. If you think about some of the largest companies that we know of in the world, Walmart, Visa, Amazon, growing like crazy, Apple and Google, human trafficking is a $236 billion with a B dollar a year industry. And that is just what's able to be accounted for and estimated for. So we also know that for every dollar that's reflected in that graph, there are dollars that are just not even tracked. because it is very much a cash industry, and you have a renewable resource. For instance, if you sell drugs to somebody, they're consumed and they're gone. But a human being can be sold over and over and over.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at this, these numbers, $236 billion a year, and probably growing every year, I would think.
Absolutely.
As is everything else. What is that really representing? Is that, if someone's being trafficked to be a prostitute, does that represent what they are charging for their services, if you will? What is this number? What does it represent? How is this such a profitable industry, I guess? You can look at Google or you can look at Apple and Amazon. You can see how they make money because they're selling products. Obviously, these people are selling people.
They're selling people for
that's
sex.
That's their product. And so that's all it is. That's all it's representing is
It's representing
the
sex.
sale price of people being trafficked.
Yep, that's the profit
That's, well, that's shocking. It's also disgusting.
made. Agreed.
You know?
Absolutely.
And we feel that number is underrepresented too. Where if you got a spreadsheet from Amazon, you'd be looking at hard numbers
Yeah.
because they're reporting every sale, right?
Sure.
With
Even
the sale
your
of
credit
people.
card statement, you
Right.
can look at your credit card activity
Right.
and you can see, okay, I bought such and such
Yeah.
on this date, such and such on this date.
Yeah.
But now that I understand what that graph means, it's shocking. I don't even have the words, I don't think,
I
to
would
describe it. And that's odd for me when I can't come up with words to describe something. But that is a shocking figure. It just is. It's astounding. And
It is.
not in a good way.
Right. And that is the problem too, because people are about money and how you can make money. And these people who are doing the trafficking, they're not the ones doing it. They're using other people and putting it out there, all for money. And then when they get more people sucked in, that it's all about the big dollar.
Yeah.
And we're all human, and when is it going to stop? How is it going to stop?
I think we're at a point where I don't think it can stop. Just like a lot of things.
Exactly.
I don't think a lot of things can stop. We can try as hard as we can. We can pray as much as we want. And I just, let's just face it, there's evil out there.
absolutely.
And as long as you
Absolutely.
have evil
Yes.
living amongst decent citizens like all
Yes.
of us, you're going to have problems
Yes.
Agreed.
to one degree or another.
But we can all make a difference.
Right.
Yeah.
We
And
can.
so that's kind of where
what
we
we're
are.
trying.
Yeah. We can't fix the world, but we can have an impact.
Right. It's kind of like I do a lot of dog rescue and animal welfare stuff. And there's an expression, kind of is what you were just saying a moment ago here, Kelly, but it goes something like, we can't make a difference for every dog in the world, but for that one, it's made a difference. I'm not
All
even
the difference in the world,
paraphrasing
for sure.
paraphrasing it right.
Right.
But bottom line is, you can't save everyone or every dog or every cat, but you can make a world of difference for those that you do save.
Right.
And that's kind of what I'm hearing from you guys. So, is there a type of age? I know you talked about, you get referrals for these young ones that you have to refer out, and then up to women in their 60s. But is there an age that tends to be a little bit more prevalent than others?
What I've been finding is kind of in the 30-ish
Yeah,
range.
20s and 30s.
20s and 30s.
I agree.
It's sometimes in their 30s before they realize what's happening to them.
Sure.
So
They could have been being victimized for quite some time by that
right.
point. And
Absolutely.
We're just getting that
and we're just
contact.
getting, yes.
Yeah. But the other piece of what we do with Tara Kozlowski, who's working on the education piece, is catching those younger kids, middle school, high school age, with education prevention in the hope that we are equipping them so that they don't become victimized
Right.
as a teenager or as an adult.
Right.
And identifying people who might be vulnerable and getting them connected with the services they need, whether it be mental health or staff at school that can connect with them and
Sure.
stuff too.
What does, and this is going to be a tough question for you guys to answer, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. Just like we can't necessarily put a face on the people who are being victimized and being trafficked, we also can't necessarily put a face on the people who are doing the trafficking. But is there a certain look that people have when they're trafficking someone? I mean, do they look kind of smarmy? I mean,
No,
Like,
absolutely
like if
not.
you were walking down the street,
like,
would you know?
Okay, when
No.
you think about pimps, we've all
Right.
seen this in TV shows and
Right.
in movies. Pimps, they've got the hat and they kind of got that walk,
Yep.
and they're all adorned in big flashy jewelry. They may be smoking a cigar or whatever.
Right.
So we kind of have that image of
Right.
what a pimp looks like.
And that can be some of them, but it could
Sure.
be a male or a female. It could be any age. It could be any ethnicity, any socioeconomic background. We see familial pimping or trafficking,
Really.
generational. Yep.
So mom and dad hand the business down to someone else. To their,
Or
Wow.
maybe they're exploiting their children
Yep.
or
oh,
their siblings.
Aunts and uncles.
Yep.
yeah.
So it
And
could
yet
be
they're still
anybody.
keeping the kids at home, right? If,
You never
wow.
know. It
Right.
could be anything. It could be the victim, could be your neighbor,
Right.
could be a coworker,
And you don't even know.
a trafficker could be.
Right. With things done online now, you don't know who's behind that.
Well, and phones too, cell phones.
Exactly.
Especially if they're using burner phones like a lot of drug dealers do. You get burner
Absolutely.
phones and you can't really track much of anything.
Right.
We also see people double dip. Maybe there's a trafficker that's selling people and selling drugs.
Right.
So that's not unheard of either.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they've got lots of. Their business model includes more than one thing that they're selling.
So how can we, if we can't recognize what the traffickers look like, and we can't necessarily figure out or notice what a person being trafficked looks like, how can we make a difference in helping to tell our children about this, our family members, our friends and coworkers? How can we impart to them? What should we be imparting to them to help keep them safe and to help keep them aware of how easily someone can be trafficked?
We do have, that's where Tara Kozlowski comes in. She is the educator that has Trafficking 101 classes open to the community. We've also gone to private churches and civic organizations and given those presentations that tells everyone what is going on, what we're about, the red flags. That's a big one. Because I've done some speaking in churches and civic organizations at a smaller scale.
Yeah.
And the thing that I push the most is the red flags, because there are, for your neighbor or your granddaughter or daughter, things that you can look for
Well, let's talk about some of those red flags.
that are out of the ordinary.
What should we be looking for?
If all of a sudden normally a very social person and now they kind of step back, if they all of a sudden have all these expensive things and they don't have a job, where did these come from? If all of a sudden the older boyfriends, that is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
So you just need to watch. And as parents, I stress, know who your kids are talking to online. You don't know who's on the, if they don't know that person face to face or know the parents, you shouldn't be talking to them. You don't know who that person is on the other end.
Right.
They could be some 55-year-old male who's trying to lure you in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay. We're down to about 14 minutes here. So you work very closely with law enforcement, and I want to talk about legislation for just a moment. Do we have enough legislation on the books to adequately protect people and punish those who would take advantage of people?
The quick answer is no. We're really pleased to have been working with the Speaker's Task Force against human trafficking and to help put together legislation that came to pass over this last calendar year. And we are finding that the politicians are reaching out to organizations like Damascus Road Project to learn more about what the needs are and to try and meet the needs with funding and educational opportunities, for instance, and for funds to help people who are trying to exit this life and focus on healing. But we are still not where we should be by a long shot.
Okay. I want to hit a couple of these really important points here before we move on. You guys provided some other pictures too. And if we could just kind of take a look at those remaining 3 pictures. Okay, community care cards. What's this all about?
This is a great way that anyone in community can get involved and make a difference. The women that we serve often have food insecurity, struggle with being able to put gas in a vehicle in order to get to and from appointments, jobs, etc., or a bus pass if they don't even have a vehicle. And so community members can get involved by supporting our community care card program, by donating money to purchase these items or donating the items in actuality, a 20 punch pass for the bus system or gas cards, grocery cards from any local grocery store is a really great way that they can make a difference.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next slide then. Now this, it says Damascus Road Project Boutique. Where is this boutique located, and tell us what it is? Who gets to use this?
Okay, that boutique is at our program center, and that boutique is open to any of our clients. So many times that when the clients get out from wherever they are, they have nothing but the clothes on their backs. So these are all donated items from the community. That we have so many great volunteers that set it up, and our ladies can come in and help themselves so they have some clothes on their backs.
And where is this located?
At 1528 Oregon Street.
1528 Oregon. Is that your new office?
Yes.
Oh, okay, because you guys, when did you move?
January.
Oh, okay.
We kind of started opening for clients in the beginning of February. So.
Okay. All right. And so next slide, please. What do we have here?
That is our Exodus bag. So every client that we meet and identify as having been trafficked or sexually exploited gets an Exodus bag from us that's filled with hygiene and toiletry items because they often don't have these things at their disposal, things that you basically need for survival. And we throw in some sweet things too. It might be a journal, an adult coloring book and colored pencils, some nutrition bars or snacks that they can have. But we make sure that every client gets one of these along with a hand-tied blanket. We have a lot of community organizations that will get together and tie fleece blankets for us that are beautiful. And they're made with love, and they come with love and prayers from those people. And every girl gets to pick out the one that they like. When they come to our office too. So
these are types of items that members in the community could donate to you guys if they wanted. And next slide then, please. Okay, so
that's a little bit of an expansion there. Those are the fleece blankets that we have on the top shelf.
Oh, they're beautiful. Look at them.
Yeah.
Wow.
The top shelf there has the Exodus bags that are pre-assembled, but then you also see to the right, we have a cabinet full of hygiene and toiletry items. These are all things that are donated by community members to individuals as well as organizations. And this helps us to provide full-size hygiene and toiletry products to clients. We always prefer to give them a full-size product rather than a hotel sample, for instance, or
Sure.
trial size, because those items might be items that they've encountered during their trauma, and that could be re-traumatizing.
Because it could serve as a trigger.
Correct.
Okay, I think that's the last slide. Yep, we covered them all. On your website, I've not been there in a while, but on your website, do you have listed the items that you guys need?
We do, and
Okay.
I update it regularly,
Okay.
and I'll be updating it again tonight or tomorrow.
All
because
right, so
we
you're
have,
the go-to person. there.
Yeah, I do have an updated list of things that we're currently in need of. So
Okay.
it changes seasonally, and it ebbs and flows. Sometimes we
Sure.
wind up getting an abundance of one thing, and it lasts us for a little while, but then we have some holes that we need to fill.
Sure. Let's talk about volunteers before we run out of time, because I think we're down to about 8 minutes. Obviously, you need volunteers. You need some kind of training for certain things that you guys do. A, how do people get trained? And B, what are some volunteer things that someone could do without any training?
Oh, there's a lot of things. So if you go to our website at damascusroadproject.org, we have a section that you can click on that will take you to a page where you can submit a volunteer application.
Okay.
And that would be how we would ask you to get in touch with us. Or if you aren't comfortable doing that, you can just go to the website and send us a message, and we can go through that interview process with you. We can find out where your gifts and talents are and find places that you fit into serving people in our care. So we offer a monthly dinner that we serve to our clients, and volunteers are there. Sometimes people will get together with some friends or community members and prepare a dinner, helping with collecting donations, fundraising, our jail program, our prison program, different people with different skill sets and interests. We have lots of places we can use them.
Okay.
But all of our volunteers do go through the Human Trafficking 101, so they fully understand who we are and what we do.
Okay.
And then from there, we call it Trafficking 102, where they get a little bit more in depth, so that we know where that way we can interview them and know where they fit best.
Sure, sure.
And then it's kind of customized to their
Right,
Yeah.
to what they want. And
Yeah. And if they just don't want to do anything like that, they can always just donate things.
Oh, absolutely.
Cash or many of the items that they're going to find on your website.
Absolutely.
And we've been putting that address up throughout the show, but for those who are listening to us via radio, it is Damascus Road Project.org. And you can also visit humantraffickinghotline.org. But that's more of a general type website. There's specifically for us in this area, DamascusRoadProject.org. Okay, so we've covered all that stuff, but you mentioned a couple of times the jail ministry and the prison ministry. Tell us real quickly what those are.
Okay. In the jail outreach, once we have identified some of the ladies who are out there, we visit them weekly. We try to find out what their needs, whether it be, with the parole officers, or if they need treatment when they get out. This is all when they get out, how we can help them serve them best. So we meet with them, and sometimes they're in there for quite a while and they just need a friendly face to talk to. We pray with them. We send them books at their request, because we have a book program, so that and they're all faith-based. So we try to do that and stay in touch with them, especially like when they're getting out and they have nothing. Then we make sure that we let them know that we're on Oregon Street and what we have available for them.
All right. And so that's both the, I wrote down prison ministry, but also jail ministry. Are they two separate things, or are they the same?
They're two separate.
They're separate.
So Lisa
Okay.
and I are going to Cheetah tomorrow, for instance, and we're going to be meeting with, I believe it's over 50 inmates that are coming to learn about trafficking, and we expect that based on what was shared with us from the social work services at the prison, that many of them have a trafficking or sexual exploitation history. So we'll be able to educate them and identify people that have been victimized, and then we can identify services that they might need upon exit too. But those people then are being released in communities all throughout Wisconsin and maybe even out of state. So sometimes if they're not in our area, our job is to connect them with somebody in their area that they're releasing to.
Okay, all right. Very quickly, tell us, like in about 2 minutes, tell us a couple of stories that where you feel that there's been a successful outcome for them, or maybe where you've made a tremendous difference for them.
One that comes to mind right away is one of the first girls that we met while we were just launching our jail ministry. She was one of the very first ones. We met her when she was just a teenager, an adult teen.
Like 18, 19.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And had a lot of trauma in her prior years. She was brought into jail, again, like we talked about, for one thing, but really there was a much deeper story there. And we've walked alongside her for a number of years, seen little successes and then great big falls, and then a little more success and a little fall. And we've just been on a journey with her. And she just recently graduated from a long-term program in another area. And she has told us that she now wants to come back and do speaking engagements for us. She's working out, she's thriving, and she's got her first job, and she loves it.
See, and that's the stuff that I'm sure you guys find so rewarding, because I can imagine that this can be a very depressing, dark kind of volunteer work that you're doing.
It can definitely ebb and flow. Do you have a brief story that comes to mind for women that you've met?
Well, we do have women that come back for us as well after they've gone through and they've got the help they needed and got their life established. They come back.
The ones nobody talks about at cocktail parties. We go looking for them. No matter the obstacles, no matter the odds, we surround the community's most critical problems,
did not want to be in that life.
and we fight.
And so we arranged for her to go to a long-term treatment where she is succeeding by far. And she got baptized when she was there, and we're just so thrilled for her because she's so young yet and her whole life's ahead of her. And she was able to get away knowing that this person that had trafficked her is in jail right now.
Oh, good.
So
That's another happy story.
That's a very happy story when you know they're sitting in there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, very good. I think that's probably going to wrap it up. I had a few other questions, but we don't have time. So I just want to thank you guys for being here. This topic, it never ceases to amaze me how difficult and challenging this is, and how much of a problem this really is in our own backyard, and we don't see it.
Absolutely.
And so I want to thank you and everyone at Damascus Road Project for what you guys are doing, and what you're going to continue to do in the future. And I would just encourage folks, hey, if you're looking to volunteer with some organization and you're not sure what or where you want to do it, this might be a very good opportunity. It doesn't cost anything to investigate it, and you might find that you've found something that you're very passionate about. And you could join these lovely ladies and the rest of their colleagues in volunteerism. So that's going to do it for us. Again, the website, DamascusRoadProject.org, HumanTraffickingHotline.org, and there is a actual hotline number. It's 888-373-7888. It's kind of a weird number. It's hard to remember, but 888-373-7888. So anyway, thanks to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for
And
having us.
I wish that Tara and Deb's mothers are both going to pull through their medical crises right now. And so thanks to them for putting this in front of me so that we could do another show. And thanks to my crew. And always thanks to you. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.